Hey everyone, welcome back to Shapers Podcast. I am your host, Brooke Michelle, and today's guest is Robert. We are going to be speaking about how he raises awareness for sexual violence. This is a trigger warning for people who have been through sexual assault and had sexual violence. I am a survivor of one, so yes, this is a trigger warning. Hi, Robert.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell my listeners a little bit about why you help raise awareness, like a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so my name is Robbie Uttaro. I'm a rape crisis counselor, an author, and a public educator. So I try my best to help people affected by sexual violence in any way. That can be, rape survivors, people who are abused at any age, and it can also be even just significant others, people who, family members, spouses, dating partners, or just anyone affected, anyone who could see something in the world and be upset by it. I also try my best to educate people on the realities of sexual violence and try my best to steer them into a path that they may need to go. So that could be individual counseling, that could be legal resources, that could some students are really just become inspired and want to get active and do the work. So it's a whole kind of broad range of work to work with people in this field.
Oh, nice. Do you work with people like around my age, like older people as well, who's been in sexual assault?
Well, I never ask people's age, so how old are you?
I'm in my 30s.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, so a lot of people. So I work with really any age. But I don't. We don't get too in depth with like really young children. We might have people I know that we might have thoughts that maybe a kid could be possibly being abused, but you kind of handle it differently because they're so young. People in your age, yeah, absolutely. There are people your age and older who are being abused now, as we speak.
Oh,
They could be obviously assaulted by strangers, but they're more likely to be assaulted by someone they know. Could be in a marriage, could be a family member, or also many people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who can be dealing with the trauma of childhood abuse. So I do work with plenty of people who put it, kind of push it away for so long or didn't remember certain things, and then something can trigger it, and then like a flood of memories and emotions come out. And so we work with them through that.
that's amazing. So, what got you into this kind of field? Because it's not every day you talk to someone and they tell you they're in this kind of field, like helping people that, help sexual assault survivors. So, what got you into this field? Like, was it a family member? You don't have to discuss any of that, but was it you or like your background or anything happened?
No, it was God. God called me into this work, and I've been doing it ever since. And I will do it as long as I can, and if I'm effective. If I'm not effective, I should stop. But if I'm effective, I will do it. And it really started to unravel when I was a college senior. And so I've been doing it for currently, as I speak to you, I've been doing it now 15 years.
Wow, that's amazing. I I don't know what to say because a lot of the counselors like I've spoken to because I am
Mm,
a sexual assault survivor and
mm,
it's been over 11 years and still struggling with the mental illness from
mhm.
what happened. So, how do you deal with your clients who are still struggling, still having those trauma and the I want to say flashbacks of it because that's what I still have flashbacks of it, and they keep having to put me in the hospital. So, how do you deal with
Mm. Well, I'm more interested in trying to help you deal with it for yourself
that?
than how I deal with it. Because I did hear you say that, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for being open and vulnerable to admit that to me. Um, I actually last night I got a text message from a woman, and she just said to me that she was spooked, and I just wrote to her saying, "You are safe." Okay, so it's like safety is a massive part of this. Flashbacks, I think it's important to understand that flashbacks are normal. given the
Mhm.
trauma that you've endured. And flashbacks really can come at any time. I'll often bring up the military. So if you can imagine a soldier in combat, right? And you can attempt to imagine how difficult and life-changing that is, and how something could just trigger them into memories and flashbacks back to war,
Mhm.
right? It is very similar with rape survivors, sexual assault survivors. And so I think it's important to be able to hopefully manage them and realize that ultimately you're not in that place anymore. And that's, easier said than done. But ideally, we can give you tools and a bunch of different things for yourself that you can use when these flashbacks happen. What is peace to you, right? What brings Brooke peace? What brings Brooke safety? What brings you to calmness and stillness? And so whatever that may be, to be able to utilize those things when the flashbacks come, because you can't prevent the flashbacks from coming. You can't prevent the nightmares
Mhm.
from coming because they come. And it happens. And just knowing that you're not, you know, awful when that happens. It's not that you're not healing just because that happens. It's actually normal.
Mhm.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Now to the T. So
I
I
mean, for
wanted to
me,
go.
for me personally, like I love music. I have a deep love of music. I love God. I love my family. You know, I was just watching a couple TV shows with my wife, and we were just laughing hysterically. So laughter is a big part of this too, and to find humor in the world. So again, whatever it is that brings you peace and safety is vital. It's necessary. It's necessary to use.
That's true. Because whenever I did go into hospital this last time, they had to hold me, put me on the, what, 72 hour hold. So
Hmm.
in there was a guy in there, and he helped me because I told him my story and told him what happened and the flashbacks and the dreams that I was having. And he talked to me and he was like, well, you really have to get out of bed and we can go do something. So he took me into the art room, and that's where I'm terrible at art, but I tried it and I started painting. And he was like, "Oh wow!" He was like, "Maybe that could be like where you can go to whenever you having the flashbacks." And I was like, "Oh well, yeah, I can." And that can help, like you
It's
said.
true. It's painting, any artistic expression, music, writing, reading, maybe just throwing a
Mhm.
movie. And for some people, there's actually being able to just go to sleep, just to be
Yeah,
able to close your eyes safely and not and just and go to bed and maybe wake up the next morning. Tomorrow's a new day. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. So I wanted to go through your website and speak a little bit about this. So, to the survivors, we're going to go through all of it, all of your website. So, to the survivors, you have a book. So, I wanted to
I do.
speak about your book. Can you go through your book a little bit and tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. The book is a combination of my journey becoming a rape crisis counselor, how I got into it, why I did it, and kind of the journey of the ups and downs of doing that work, uh, combined with true stories of women and men, and one transgendered man who have been raped and sexually assaulted. So there's written stories, there's poetry, there's interviews, and it's just their truths. And so it's this powerful kind of back and forth between us. And it they show you how it happened to them, how it affected them, but how they've come out of it. It's such a heavy topic. It's such a depressing topic for so many people, and I think so many people are scared to look at it, which is understandable. But I never leave you down. It really actually is a book about hope and strength, and I believe inspiration in a universal way. And there's many different life pieces in it, but a huge focus on sexual assault.
Yeah, that's true too. And I wanted to go back to when you spoke about God. So, I was an atheist until I would say 2020. That wasn't the last time I was in the hospital. Last time I was in the hospital was a month ago for trying to commit suicide. But
Mm,
in 2020 is when I decided to go to church because I was like, you know, I don't know if I heard God while I was in the hospital, but I
mm,
decided to just walk up to church.
mm.
And when I went there, they all opened arms, like they all accepted me. And I was like, I did not think that would happen at all
Mm,
because I have
mhm,
piercings, tattoos, and they was like, well, we don't judge here. So I'm like, wow, that was amazing because I always thought Christians were like really judgmental and hypocritical, until
mhm,
I went to church.
mm.
But that's what I experienced, and I was like, wow, that's not how they really are. Like, so that
What has
was
that done for
my
what has that done for you since?
um I don't know, I'm still in and out of the hospital, but it did help me to believe it, that he is real. Like he really does listen to you if you just
Mm.
talk to him. So I wanted to go through your survivors radio show. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was written and created by a woman named Biola Olatunde, from Akure, Nigeria.
Oh,
It is just such a blessing that the book to the survivors could inspire that radio program, and it's something that will always be special to me. So it's she wrote a pretty powerful script, and then you'd have to listen to the episodes, but they have just a kind of like a roundtable discussion about the issues, and you see whether it's Nigeria or America
mm,
that there are still people who are suffering from the effects of sexual violence. There are people who are suffering from suicide. Um, as different as cultures and countries can be, there are similarities as well. And these are messages that hopefully can help some people in Nigeria and anywhere in the world, really.
yeah, that's true. And I like it when that you have when boys cry because there's not a lot. My podcast is centered around survivors. So I don't have many men survivors willing to share their stories. Have
Mm,
you like how do you deal with I wouldn't say how would you deal with, but how how do you communicate with men who have been survivors? It's rare that men speak about being sexually assaulted because if they're sexually assaulted by a woman, they're just like, oh, well, that makes me feel less manly. Like
mm,
that's what I've heard from men when I'm in therapy. I've heard this from men a lot of times.
mm.
So,
I think I handle people have different situations and different almost like stages of their life and different healing journeys. I think I respond the same, and what I mean by that is responding with love and with patience and listening to them and being present with them. So that is true with both men and women. That's true of any gender, any identity,
mhm,
and really listening to them and really hearing what is upsetting them. Part of what I do is people are hurting and they keep it inside. And if they keep it inside, it's only going to continue to hurt them. And so it's very important at some point in someone's life, no matter what is afflicting you, to be able to get it out. And that's true in different ways. Well, it's verbal for many, but it could be in other ways that people express it. And so for them to feel safe enough to express some of that is special to me. And so whether it's a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, to be able to be there in a kind and safe and compassionate, empathetic place. Now, depending on what the issue might be, then it could be possibly different. Then that could possibly there's some men who, as you said, feel less of a man. Other men might tend to become more quote unquote manly. Whatever that might be, they might become more aggressive or dominant or trying to control certain things. So trying to work through them through that. So it really varies as to where people are at.
that's true. That's true. So I want to go through your resources. Oh, you have the suicide hotline. I like it.
Yeah, I
I like
mean,
it.
just what you said. I mean, you know, Christianity and God, I mean, if God is real, if God exists, then you are loved. And so if God is real, I just don't believe God would want you to kill yourself. But that's what rape does.
Mhm.
That's part of what rape does. That's what sexual violence does. That's what trauma and evil do to people. And so so many people are just infected with pain and lies, and it's very heavy.
Yeah.
And there are so many lies. So what I try to do is combat the lies with truth. And so I'll tell you, and I'll tell your audience, and I'll tell my students, I'll tell anyone who will listen. There's truly nothing on this earth worth you
Mm-hmm.
taking your life over. There's
Yeah.
nothing worth killing yourself over. I'm gonna have a meeting with a woman right after this
Oh my
who, after
gosh.
so long, is still suicidal, and she has young children,
Yeah.
and she's hurting, she's suffering because of the horrors of her life, and yet
Mm-hmm.
still you have 2 gems, you have beautiful gifts in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth killing yourself, and sometimes with rape specifically, people are so scared, they're so immersed in shame,
Mm-hmm.
and they think many times that it's unspeakable, that no one will either believe me, no one will really listen to me, or
Mm-hmm.
that I just can't get it out, but in reality, you can, that you can get it out. I just highly recommend to someone you trust, and that someone will treat
Yeah.
you well.
Yeah, it's really hard. And surprisingly, when I was at work, I had a mental breakdown, was crying, and sorry if I sound like I'm gonna cry. I'm really sick right now, so I'm congested.
Mhm,
But when I went to the human resources, the human resources building, I was crying uncontrollably. So they locked the doors because I was going to kill myself. I was like, if you send me home, I'm going to do it. And she was like, well, we're not sending you home. They called like these people in, and I did not know that jobs take mental illness that serious now.
mhm,
Like, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I don't know if you
mhm,
heard about it on the national news, but a guy went into a bank and that he worked in and shot up everybody in the bank. I don't know if you heard about that,
mm-mm,
but he was suffering from mental illness. So they take it real, even more serious now. And I'm like,
mhm,
why didn't they do this before?
mm,
Like it took someone going to kill somebody for you to take it serious.
mhm.
But
In my experience, a lot of I know plenty of people that will push through and try and go to work,
mhm,
and I try to get them to not do that when the time comes, like when you're just sick or exhausted, or not even exhausted because we all get tired, but more like I'm having a serious mental work will always be there. It's just not, like you really have to do it for yourself because it's better than taking your life or having a complete breakdown at your job,
yeah, it's a serious, serious, serious issue. Like,
especially if your
so
job actually allows it. I mean, if you have a job that allows you to take time, you have to take
yeah,
time when it's necessary.
yeah, it's surprising that they do that now. Like, I was not expecting that from my job, but they do. They have 1 day a week that you can go see a therapist, that they will
Mm,
let you off of work to go see a therapist. I'm like, wow. They did not have this at any of the jobs when I was, going through my sexual assault. Like, they'll just straight up fire you. And I'm just
mm.
like, it's crazy. But is there anything you want to share with my listeners before I let you go?
Thank you for talking with me, and thank you for opening up, and I guess I can't stress the suicide enough that you brought it up. There's nothing worth taking your life. If anything can be spoken about, anything can be dealt with, and we're all gonna die anyways, we just don't have to do it ourselves. So
Exactly.
there will come a time when that pain of this earth is gone, but I beg you to not do it yourself. And if you have any interest in the work I do or my book at all, just know that you don't have to go read it. It's just know it exists. If anyone out there needs it for whatever reason, but it doesn't feel safe or healthy to you, that's totally okay. Like don't read it, or maybe take a look at a paragraph or a sentence or a chapter.
Mhm.
Um, but if it's not good for you, don't. Just know it exists, and if you know someone that's out there, talk to them. If this interview is helpful in any way, spread the messages.
Yes. I want to thank you so much for being a guest today, and thank you for sharing your last words with us. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Bye. Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to Sheepers Podcast, and thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Robert. I am going to put his website in the banner below. That's his website that you can go purchase the book, and here it is, his website, and here's where you can buy the book. And he has a Survivor radio show and to the survivors, and you can like read about the book before you purchase it. So thank you so much for listening. Sorry if I sound like I'm sick. I am congested. But thank you all so much for listening and support my podcast. I really, really greatly appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.